Welcome, 8th graders. It is so great to have you in class today. Okay, let's dive into this. Today, we are opening up our Bibles to explore a truly fascinating, really foundational part of the New Testament, Romans chapters 9 through 11. We're going to look at exactly how God takes people from totally different backgrounds and weaves them together into one single, unified family through faith in Jesus Christ.
Here is our roadmap for today's lesson. 1. Two groups, one big plan. 2. Rules cannot replace real faith. 3. The olive tree metaphor. 4. A warning against pride. And 5. Wisdom, morality, and learning.
Section 1. Two groups, one big plan.
To really understand what the Apostle Paul is writing about in this section of Romans, we first need to understand the two main groups of people he's actually addressing. This is kind of the foundation for everything God is doing here. First, Israel. This refers to the Jewish people. These are the physical descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They are the people of the Old Testament. The Gentiles, on the other hand, are quite simply everyone else. If you are not part of the nation of Israel, you are a Gentile. That includes all the other nations and people groups across the entire world.
Now look at how these two groups started out. Israel had some incredible advantages. They were the insiders. God gave them the law through Moses, he gave them the promises of the coming Messiah, and they had the covenant sign of circumcision. The Gentiles, however, were the outsiders. They didn't have the law or those historical promises. They were brought into God's ultimate plan entirely, 100%, through his mercy alone. God was taking these two totally different starting points and bringing them together.
And this brilliantly illustrates the heart of today's lesson. This is our memory verse of the day, Romans 10:12. For there is no distinction between Jew and Greek, for the same Lord over all is rich to all who call upon him. See, it doesn't matter if you started as an insider with the law or an outsider who knew absolutely nothing about it. God's plan ultimately unites both groups under one banner, those who call upon him.
Section 2. Rules cannot replace real faith. Getting to that unity wasn't simple, though. Even though Paul loved his people, Israel, he actually wrote chapters 9 and 10 with a deep sense of sorrow because many of them were missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. You see, Israel had a deep, undeniable zeal for God. I mean, they were passionate. They worked incredibly hard to follow the law perfectly, and they relied heavily on their traditions, like circumcision, to prove they belonged to God. But in all that intense focus on tradition and law-keeping, many of them completely missed the main point, surrendered faith in the Messiah, Jesus Christ. They kind of just thought their rule following was enough.
So the crucial point is this. Doing things by the book can absolutely never replace a genuine, surrendered faith in Jesus. Having the law and the promises was a massive blessing, yes, but just checking boxes doesn't save you. Real salvation requires surrendering your heart to the righteousness of God through Christ. Rules will always be less than surrendered faith.
Section 3. The olive tree metaphor. Let's move to and see how this builds in chapter 11.
To help his readers visualize this amazing, complex relationship between Israel and the Gentiles, Paul gives us a brilliant visual metaphor. He asks us to picture an olive tree. Think of how a farmer takes care of a tree. First, Paul says that some of the natural branches, representing those in Israel who rejected Jesus, were broken off due to unbelief. Second, he says wild olive branches, representing the Gentiles, were grafted in by faith. Now, grafting is when you take a branch from one tree and physically bind it into the trunk of another, so it actually becomes part of the living tree. Third, and most importantly, both the remaining natural branches and the newly grafted wild branches are now supported together by the exact same root. Everyone in this new grafted tree family receives their life and salvation from that same root, Jesus Christ. And this salvation isn't just a one-time event. It grows. This family experiences salvation in 3 beautiful stages. There's the initial born-again salvation when you first trust Christ. There's your work-in-progress salvation as you grow in faith and obedience every single day. And finally, the future salvation we all look forward to when God's plan is completely fulfilled.
Section 4. A warning against pride. Now, you might think the Gentiles would be thrilled to be grafted into this beautiful tree. And they were, but Paul knew human nature, and he knew they might be tempted to get a big head about it. So he issues a very stern but loving warning to the newly grafted-in Gentiles. This is our bonus verse for today, Romans 11:20, do not be haughty, but fear.
To be haughty just means to be arrogant or stuck up. Paul is telling the Gentiles, listen, you were wild branches. You were brought into this family entirely by God's mercy, not because you earned it. Being included by grace leaves absolutely zero room for boasting or pride. We are to respect and revere God, recognizing that our place in the tree is entirely a gift. So what does God expect from everyone in this grafted family, whether Jew or Gentile? He expects genuine faith. He expects total surrender to Jesus as Lord. He requires humility, knowing we didn't earn our spot. And he wants us to continue living to please the Father. Neither group can boast over the other, because both desperately need Jesus, and both are called to exactly the same standard of humble obedience. All right, let's hit the pause button for a second. I want you to really think about this. Why does learning this matter for you today? I mean, we're talking about ancient Israelites and Roman Gentiles from thousands of years ago. How does a lesson about olive trees, faith, and avoiding pride actually apply to your life, right here in the 8th grade? Section 5, Wisdom, Morality, and Learning. So, how does all this apply to you? It applies perfectly to the very thing you spend most of your day doing, learning. Here at HeroesMart Academy, we intertwine biblical morality with education, because education without morality can actually hurt. Just like having the law didn't save the Israelites if they lacked genuine faith, simply getting a secular education without a moral compass can lead you down a dangerous path. If you just get smarter but don't learn how to be good, you are missing the root of the tree. Look at the difference here. Raw intelligence makes you more capable. It gives you the ability to do complex math, build incredible technology, or write persuasive essays. But biblical morality is what helps you make wise, God-honoring choices with those abilities. Knowledge and intelligence should help you make wise choices rather than simply making you more capable. We don't want you to just be smart. We want you to be wise. Intelligence should be a tool you use to honor God, rather than something you boast about out of pride.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this entire concept ties perfectly back to earlier in Romans. Romans 8, 6-7 teaches us that keeping the mind spiritually minded leads to life and peace. When you keep your mind focused on God, truth, and righteous choices, even while you are studying science, history, or literature, you are producing the fruit of that healthy olive tree. You're guarding your mind and inviting true life and peace into your daily routine. So I want to leave you with this challenge today. Will you encourage yourself to pursue academic excellence while keeping your mind centered on God, truth, wisdom, and righteous choices? Remember the Israelites who relied on the rules but missed the faith. Remember the Gentiles who were warned not to get proud about their blessings. As you continue your education, stay humble, stay surrendered to Jesus, and intertwine your hard work in school with a deep biblical morality. That is how you truly thrive. Have a great rest of your day, class, and keep growing in grace.